Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradari. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradari. Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yamunatiravanachari. Yamunatiravanachari. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradari. Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yamunatiravanachari. Yamunatiravanachari. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradari. Jai Vishwapad Paramhamsa Karivedi Vichaya Ashtotara Shatashi Srimad Divine Grace HG Bhakti Shiva Sadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shama Kund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Navadvip Dham Ki Jai. Ganga Yamuna Maya Ki Jai. Tulsi Maharani Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Samaveta Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru. Shri Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Thank you. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5, entitled The Creative Impetus, Chapter 17, The Descent of the River Ganges, and we're on text 14. So I'll just chant the verse or the prose, and then I'll read the translation and the commentary. By His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Navasvapi Vasheshu Bhagavan Narayano Mahapurusha Purushanam Tat Anugraha Tatvavyo Henatman Nadyapi Sanidiyate. Translation. To show mercy to his devotees in each of these 9 tracts of land, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, known as Narayan, expands himself in his quadruple principles of Vasudeva, Sankarshan, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha. In this way, he remains near his devotees to accept their service. Purport. In this connection, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur informs us that the demigods worship the Supreme Lord in his various deity forms, Arcā-Vigraha. Because except in the spiritual world, the Supreme Personality of Godhead cannot be directly worshipped in person. In the material world, the Lord is always worshipped as the Arcā-Vigraha, or deity in the temple. There is no difference between the Arcā-Vigraha and the original person. And therefore, those who are engaged in worshipping the deity in the temple in full opulence, even on this planet, should be understood to be directly in touch with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, without a doubt. As enjoined in the Shastras, Arche Vishnau Shiladir Gurushu Nara Mati. No one should treat the deity in the temple as stone or metal, nor should one think that the spiritual master is an ordinary human being. One should strictly follow this śāstric injunction and worship the deity, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, without offenses. The spiritual master is the direct representative of the Lord, and no one should consider him an ordinary human being. By avoiding offenses against the deity and the spiritual master, one could advance in spiritual life, or Krishna consciousness. In this regard, the following quotation appears in the Laghu Bhagavatamrita. Padmetu paramo vyomna puradye dikshutishtaye vasudevadayo vyuhash chatvara katita kramat tatapado vibhutau cha nivasanti kramadime jalavritista vaikunta stita vedavati pare satyordve vishnave loke nityaike dvaraka pure shudodad utare shveta dvipe chairavati pare chirambudistitante krodha paryankadamani satvatiye kvachit tantre navavyuya prakritita chatvaro vasudevadya narayana nishinghakau Hayagriva Mahakroda Brahmacheti Navodita Tatrabhama Tuvegeya Purvakto Vidya Hari. So Prabhupada, he was one time it was during Janmashtami, Krishna's appearance day, and Prabhupada had the idea that we're going to stay up and we're going to read the whole Krishna book. That was Prabhupada's idea. Because on Janmashtami we stay up till midnight, at least. We fast till midnight. And then, so Prabhupada's idea that let us fast and read the whole Krishna book. So then time was passing, and then Prabhupada realized that we're not going to be able to finish the Krishna book because, it's lengthy. So he said, that's okay. I'll just chant the whole 10th canto, the Sanskrit. So that's what Prabhupada started to do. He started to chant the whole 10th canto in Sanskrit. And his disciples were there listening. And then Prabhupada looked up a few times and he told the devotees, he said, I know you don't understand because it's Sanskrit. But he said the benefit's still there. So someone say, why did I chant all this Sanskrit? Well, benefit's still there. In the Padma Purana, it is said that in the spiritual world, the Lord personally expands in all directions and is worshipped as Vasudeva, Sankarshan, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha. The same God is represented by the deity in this material world, which is only 1/4 of his creation. Vasudeva, Sankarshan, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha are also present in the 4 directions of this material world. There is a Vaikuntha Loka covered with water in this material world, and on that planet is a place called Vedavati, where Vasudeva is located. Another planet known as Vishnu Loka is situated above Satya Loka, and there Sankarshan is present. Similarly, in Dwarkarpuri, Pradyumna is the predominator. On the island known as Shvetadvip, there is an ocean of milk, and in the midst of that ocean is a place called Airavati Pura, where Aniruddha lies on Ananta. In some of the Sattva Tantras, there is a description of the 9 Varshas and the predominating deity worshipped in each. 1. Vasudeva, 2. Sankarshan, 3. Pradyumna, 4. Aniruddha, 5. Narayan, 6. Nrsimha, 7. Hayagriva, 8. Mahavaraha, and 9. Brahma. The Lord Brahma mentioned in this connection is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. When there is no fit human being to empower as Lord Brahma, the Lord himself takes the position of Lord Brahma. Tattara Brahma tu Vegeya Purvakto Vidaya Harihi. That Brahma mentioned here is Hari himself. Om Jnanati Brandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshuvanmaditam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Makam Karidivachalam Pangam Langai Tegrim Yakripatamaham Vande Shri Gurun Diditananam Vancha Kapadrubhyascha Kripasindabevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasudi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama. Translation again. To show mercy to his devotees in each of these 9 tracts of land, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, known as Narayan, expands himself in his quadruple principles of Vasudeva, Sankarshan, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha. In this way, he remains near his devotees to accept their service. So Krishna, he appears in different forms for the benefit of the souls, or you could say the conditioned souls. He appears in different different forms. In one particular form that's being mentioned here is, throughout the purport, is the deity form. He appears as the deity. And he also appears as the holy name, Nam avatar. He's descending the holy name form of Krishna. So these are very merciful forms of Krishna. And people could and are benefiting a lot from associating with those particular forms. Just like yesterday we were out on Pacific Beach, we had a little Harinam. And we were walking down the boardwalk, and there was one guy. He was like behind this is some restaurant, but there's this big glass border covering, whatever, wall. And the guy was holding his baby, and we were walking by, chanting, playing mridanga and singing, and a number of devotees. And then the guy had his baby, and he's going like this with his baby, like holding the baby up and going like this, you know. So, anyways, a number of people were encouraging yesterday. Yeah. Children, you see, naturally children, they tend to move and dance a little more than not all the time, but a lot of the time than the adults, because, you know, the adults have got so many things weighing them down, right? This, that, so many different things. The children are a little bit more light. They don't have all the troubles, right? They naturally move. In this case, I guess the father was moving the baby, because the baby was just, you know, just a small baby, you know. Yeah, involuntarily. But the father looked like he was having a good time. So, Srila Prabhupada, this is Nam avatar, the holy name, form of Krishna. And as Srila Prabhupada said he described the holy name in a very famous album, right? The Happening album, I think it's called. And Prabhupada said that anyone could take part in this chanting. He said even you don't have to understand the language. He said anyone without consideration of caste, creed, and this, that, anyone throughout the world can understand or can participate in this chanting. And he said even a dog can participate. So, so the name of Krishna is very merciful, most merciful form. And it's special because it's a form that generally people have to make some endeavor. I mean, you have to make endeavor actually to come to the temple, right? Like you live, how far do you live away? 20 minutes? You live 30 minutes, right? Tapas lives 10 minutes, right? Huh? 5 minutes? All right, now you told us that. Now we want you to be here more often. Now that you told us that. Joseph, he's about to live just, I don't know, a minute, maybe, I guess it takes about a minute, 60 seconds. Yeah, he just moved in next door, so we expect to see Joseph more also. So, but you have to make some endeavor, whether it's Prakash lives right across the street, I don't know how long it takes you, 5 minutes to walk or a few minutes, so. There has to be, even upstairs, you could be upstairs, you have to make endeavor walk downstairs, right, to see the deity. So, so we have to make an endeavor to see the deity of Krishna, or else we're not going to see the deity of Krishna. And actually, Srila Prabhupada explains that that's what the legs should be engaged. That's how the legs should be engaged, right? The legs should be engaged by walking to the temple or walking to our car, driving, getting out of the car and walking to the temple to see the deity. That's a proper utilization of the legs. Or else the Bhagavatam says, the legs are no better than tree trunks. They're no better than tree trunks. And the Bhagavatam also says that those eyes that do not see the forms of the personality of Godhead, the deity forms, are considered to be like eyes on the plumes of a peacock. It means that you said those eyes. They look like eyes, but they're not really eyes. They're not really of any value. So that's, we engage the eyes, seeing the deity, the legs, and coming to the temple to serve the deity or to take darshan. And also the hands, right? We can engage in cooking for the deity, or offering arti, or offering prayers, right? I remember over the years, sometimes you have brahmacharis in the morning program, they're like this. Check it out, Tyler. It's a visual. They're like this, you know, in front of the deity. Which is not the greatest mudra, you know, like this. Like we were discussing the other day, right? That's actually a defense mudra. That if someone's going to attack you, you don't go like this, or you don't go like this, right? Remember, you go like this. And then if they come closer, then you could, right, defend. But this is a defense, right, mechanism. So it's kind of like closed off. Like you're kind of closing your heart off to Krishna, right? So we had Rajendrananda Prabhu here, and he would vocally, you know, tell the brahmachari, hey, don't do this. Or they do different things, you know, different. So, you know, this mudra is good, or this, or, right, something like that. So the hands could be engaged in cooking for the deities, offering prayers, dressing the deities, offering arti. So you can engage the hands in shopping for the deities. Also, we could see book distribution as service to the deity, service to Krishna, in the sense of we go out and we're distributing the books and we want to bring people ultimately, like what's the success? The success, of course, there's different, you could say, ways to gauge the success. Like Vaisheshika Prabhu said, the success of book distribution is that you just hit the pavement. Means that you leave the temple or leave the house or wherever, leave the car, and you hit the pavement to try to go distribute books. That's a success, right? Now, measuring a little, more different gauges of success. Like success is to approach someone, and the next success is for them to take a book. The next success is them to take a stack or a Bhagavatam set or whatever. And the next success is that they come to the temple, they start associating with devotees, they may join the temple, they may become a congregation member, they engage in the process of chanting, they become initiated, and they become qualified to worship the deity, and they themselves broadcast, propagate the chanting, the book distribution. They somehow or other engage in the missionary work, spreading the Krishna's message. So that's success. So we could see that book distribution is service to the deity in the sense that we're spreading the glories of Krishna. And also we're trying to bring people, ultimately, to the point of worshipping Krishna. And Krishna is here in the form of the deity. Like in Vrindavan, Krishna Balarama Mandir, you have that devotee. He was having some visa problems. I don't know if he ever made it back. Maybe he did. But what's that Swami? Janardhan Swami? He was the temple president over there in the Krishna Balarama. He took sannyas. He was a brahmachari, but it was Janardhan Swami. He has a longer name, but I'm abbreviating it. So anyways, he was in charge of reading the book scores every morning. And what they do is that they have Mangalarti, right, 4:30 to 5, and then they leave the altars open while the morning announcements are going on. And they say, we like to thank, welcome all these different devotees, this Swami, this person, that person, and thank you, welcome to Sri Vrindavan Dham, right? And then he says, for the pleasure of Shri Radha Shamasundar, Shri Krishna Balaram, Shri Gaur Nitai, and Srila Prabhupada, His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada, and all the devotees, we'd like to read the book scores. And it says the Mataji team distributed so many books, and there's different teams. And then after they read the scores, then they close the doors of the altar. And they glorify Shri Radha Shamasundar Ki Jai, and then they close the doors. So it could also be seen like that, for the pleasure of Radha Giridhari, also, book scores. But again, for people to get the benefit of seeing the deity, they have to come to the temple. All the merciful forms, but they have to come to the temple. And to get close and to do personal service for the deity, one has to be initiated and so on. You have to have some qualification. But we see with the holy name of Krishna that go out on the streets and give the holy name to anybody, and they get to hear it, and they get to benefit from it, from hearing. And they may even get to chant. Same with book distribution. It's a most merciful endeavor because in previous ages, actually, not anyone could even touch scripture. Means just as you have to be qualified to touch the deity, you can't just let a mlecha, yavana, uncultured, right, you have to be trained, you have to be educated, you have to be clean. There's a lot of qualifications actually to get on the altar and touch the deities, to worship them, to dress them, right? So similarly, in previous ages, it was understood that the soul was looking very tall from peripheral vision. I don't know why. He's looking like Jamal or something. I don't know about Jamal, but Jamal is really tall. But he was looking tall. But in order to touch the scripture, one had to be qualified, actually. Not just anybody would be able to touch the scripture. They should keep scriptures on the altar, actually, some cases. So, but now, through mass distribution of Srila Prabhupada's books, printing hundreds and thousands and millions of books all over the world and distribute them all over the world, devotees go out on the streets, set up book tables. A lot of it's going on in book tables these days. And they approach people, hey, excuse me, and the guy's, got a beer in one hand and a hot dog or hamburger in the other hand, and right. One devotee, Madhavendra Puri, he said, that Lord Nityananda's mercy is in action when you approach someone on book distribution. And the guys, you approach them, and then beer goes out of one hand, hamburger goes out of the other hand, and the guy gives a donation and takes a Bhagavad Gita. He said, Nityananda Prabhu is involved. So, some of the acharyas, they explain that, in the scriptures, explain even just seeing these people, actually, it's explained. They say you should jump in the Ganges, right, to get purified. So devotees, they go out and they pass out books, and they give people these books. Krishna, actually, it's a form of Krishna. It's a deity, actually. Prabhupada said it's a form of a deity, books. Therefore, the books should be kept very nicely, like within the ashram. Sometimes brahmacharis, due to sometimes maybe men, you could say, I don't know, women too, but people have a tendency to be a little messy, right, or whatever. But the books, they're actually deities, so they should be kept very nicely, cleansed properly. And Prabhupada was actually upset. He went into the ashram and he saw that their books were ripped and, upside down and dust and everything. So, to keep them. So they're the deity forms, and the devotees just hand them out. Here, take it, right? And it's a great form of communicating Krishna consciousness. Of course, there's other forms also. Social media is a big one nowadays because everybody's on it practically, everybody and their mother. But the books are very wonderful because they get a book, and Srila Prabhupada is there in the form of a book also, and he is ready to educate them. And Prabhupada's very patient. Like we go to somebody's house, right? We may stay a few days because they have a saying that, I don't know exactly what the saying is, but 3 days and you're kind of outstay your welcome, right? Ready to go. So anyways, but Prabhupada stays there in the form of his books 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, week after week, month after month, year after year, very patiently waiting. And then someone may pick up the book and read it, right, and become a devotee. There's many stories like that. So these are different forms: the deity form, the form of the books, form of the holy name. These are different forms. In relation to Gaur Nitai, Sri Gaur Nitai, Prabhupada said that you could make little dolls. And he said that you could distribute them to people. And tell people, you keep these dolls in your house. And you offer them some water, offer them some flowers. And it will be very auspicious for you. It will be very good for your life. And then Prabhupada said, what if these people eat meat, Srila Prabhupada? Because Prabhupada's just saying just to distribute them. And Prabhupada said, that's okay. Gaura Nitai are so merciful that they'll still bless these people. Now, for a meat eater to keep a form of Gaura Nitai in their house, I mean, again, Brahmins, right? They have very high standards. So for Srila Prabhupada to say this, you could see the mercy of Gaura Nitai. So Arcā-Vigraha, the deity form. And then there's this particular verse, Arcā-Vigraha Shila Dir Gurushu Nara Mati. No one should treat the deity in the temple as stone or metal, nor should one think that the spiritual master is an ordinary human being. One should strictly follow the śāstric injunction to worship the deity, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, without offenses. So they have that saying, familiarity breeds contempt. It means you become too familiar, or we become too familiar, and it inspires this mentality within us of not valuing what should be valued. Not appreciating what should be appreciated. Just like sometimes devotees go home and visit their family, and then they come back and they appreciate the temple a lot more. The devotees, the whole arrangement. Also, that's the value of going out on book distribution as well, because you deal with so many people, and then you come back and you say, oh, the devotees aren't so bad, these people are actually really good. But if you become too familiar, they call it like, devotees get like cabin fever, It's kind of not cabin fever, you get temple fever, right? In the temple so much, and so it's good to go. So familiarity breeds contempt. Means that we become so close to Krishna in the form of his deity, or we become so close to the spiritual master, the devotees, we start thinking that they're ordinary, or we start not respecting them or appreciating them like we should. And that could be very dangerous, because they're not ordinary. And actually, this particular verse goes on to say that anyone who begins to think like this, or anyone who thinks like this, that, oh, the deity is just stone and metal, and the Charnamrita, it's just ordinary water, although it's washed, Giri Govardhan. Also, just so devotees know, but this water here, that's the Charnamrita, it actually bathes Govardhan every day, our Govardhan Shila. So every single day, Dayanidhi or Dharmasetu, someone's bathing the Govardhan. So then we're drinking this, or we're drinking that water that's bathed Giri Govardhan. And the small Radha Krishna deities, it's not, they wipe those deities with a wet cloth, but they don't bathe them every day actually, like they do Giri Govardhan. I mean, they bathe them, but they bathe them in a different way with the wet cloth. So most of the Charnamrita that we're getting is actually Govardhan Charnamrita. So, but people think, oh, that's just ordinary, and the spiritual master is ordinary, and so on, says that they have a hellish mentality. Actually, it says a residents of hell. So we want to be careful that we may have the right understanding, but we want to keep the right understanding. Right? We don't want things to go sour. We don't want our relationship to spoil. Just like someone in marriage, right? Things may be going right, but they want things to go right, or they want it to continue to go right. They don't want it to spoil. They don't want it to become sour, right? They want to continue to go right. So that means there's certain, you could say, a certain consciousness that has to be maintained in order for things to go right. And that's like within any relationship, there has to be a certain consciousness, right? Maintenance of particular mentality. And then if we avoid the offenses towards the deity and the spiritual master, it says we advance in spiritual life. We advance in Krishna consciousness. Yasya prasada bhagavat prasado yasya prasada nakati katopi dhyayans tuvamstasya yasya stri sandhyam vande guroshri charanadavindam. That by pleasing the spiritual master, one pleases Krishna. And without pleasing the spiritual master, then one cannot make any advancement in spiritual life. So therefore one should at least 3 times a day, right, morning, noon, evening, remember the spiritual master. So it's not that we are into Krishna alone, but the spiritual master also. So, so that's the idea, that if we avoid the offenses to the deity, if we avoid the offenses to the spiritual master, then we make advancement. And if we don't avoid the offenses to the deity and the spiritual master, then it's a little slow. It's a little slow. Just like you're on the freeway. You got to go at a particular speed, right? A lot of the times in Southern California, they say it's fast, actually. It was 70, 75. People come from other places and they say, wow, you Southern Californians, you really drive fast. But you gotta keep up with all the other cars, right? They're all going a particular speed. So similarly, we want to keep up. We don't want to slow down and people start honking at, hey, speed up, and right, that's what happens. You slow down on the freeway, and it's actually dangerous. You could hurt yourself, right? People speed up, right? So, we want to go at a proper speed, and that is, again, possible by knowing the offenses and then avoiding them. Now, those offenses are in the nectar of devotion. There's a lot of them in the nectar of devotion. So, to read the nectar of devotion, then try to follow. That's the idea. So, okay, does anybody have any questions? Yes, Joseph, or comments?
Hare Krishna. I like the subject of the deities. I always thought they were something you had to touch or see, but I'm hearing now that it's Krishna's Nam, his holy name, and then the books are actually deities. So,
yes.
So I really don't have a question, but I think you answered all of them in the class anyway. But okay. So the question is the difference between what you can see and. Okay, it's the Maha Mantra, the 16 words. Is that a deity too?
You could say that. Yeah, the holy name is Krishna. Yeah. The holy name is Krishna. Yeah. Also, Radharani, we shouldn't forget about Radharani because, I mean, we are a little careful to discuss Radharani, but because people misunderstand, but for those of who have been around for a while and who are striving towards initiation or who are initiated should be very conscious also of Radharani, Srimati Radharani. Actually, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he said, I'm forgetting the term right now, but he said there's a term, Vaishnava refers to a devotee of Vishnu. And then he said Karshna refers to a devotee of Krishna. And he said Gaudiya, Gaudiya refers to a devotee of Srimati Radharani. And he said, actually, we're Gaudiyas. We're devotees of Srimati Radharani. That's what he said. And then Srila Prabhupada mentions this in the purport in the Bhagavatam. He says that the devotees in Vrindavan, Vrindavan, you could go there, they're always saying, Jai Radhe, Jai Radhe. It's actually very nice. Even the rickshaw wallas, they're driving, and instead of honking, or they say, Jai Radhe, Jai Radhe, everything Jai Radhe, Jai Radhe. It's actually very nice. But he said they understand, the residents of Vrindavan, they understand that it's actually the mercy of Radharani, the soft counterpart of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So growing up in Abrahamic religions, maybe some of us grew up in Abrahamic religions, right, Islam and so on, or Christianity. There's a heavy emphasis on God, of course, but God meaning the Supreme Father, right, praying to the Father. So many Christians disagree on things, so many, right, Abrahamic religions disagree about so many things, but one thing they agree with is that this idea of they're praying to God as the Father, right? Supreme Father. Now, so growing up like that, maybe some of us grew up like that, there may be a tendency to just focus on the Father, right? Praying to Father, Father, Father. But we need to, you could say, recondition ourselves, or recondition our minds to say, hey, there's also the Supreme Mother, Srimati Radharani. She's also there. Hare Krishna. She actually comes first. Hare is Srimati Radharani. So, anyways, yeah. And it says that the spiritual master is actually said to be a intimate or a representative of Srimati Radharani or Lord Nityananda Prabhu. Interesting. And Prabhupada, when he was a young boy, his father, when all these sadhus would come, his father would tell these sadhus, please bless my son. And then what he would ask for, he said, please bless my son so that he becomes a pure devotee of Srimati Radharani. That's what he would ask for the blessings. So, okay, you had a...
Hare Krishna. You had mentioned the Shastra was on the altar and you couldn't just freely pass it out. Was the Maha Mantra also the same way? Do I remember hearing the Maha Mantra was kept secret for many yugas? And if so, when did it become a public access to the public?
Well, there's different processes for different ages, like deity worship or yagyas, fire yagyas, or so on, meditation. So the process for this age is Hare Krishna chanting, Hare Krishna. And you could say it was, hidden in many ways, or not well known. But the person who made it well known was Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He started his Sankirtan movement in Navadvip, They were chanting and dancing in Srivas Angam. First, it was just Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Lord Nityananda, Advaita Acharya, all these amazing personalities with their pure devotees. And they were just chanting and dancing. They were having these kirtans, these night kirtans. And actually, they wouldn't let anybody in the door unless they were also qualified. They had to be pure devotees. And there said that there was one brahmachari who just subsisted off of milk. He just drank milk. Not buffalo milk, cow's milk. And he wanted to see these kirtans. So he actually snuck, they secretly brought him in, and he was hiding. I don't know, like a wicker basket or something. And he was hiding, and he was seeing this kirtan going on. You can imagine Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Nityananda and all the devotees dancing. And then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, "Stop the kirtan." And he said, "I feel something different. I don't feel my usual ecstasy. There must be someone here who is not supposed to be here." So then Shiva said, "Yes, that's true, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But this brahmachari, he's a pure brahmachari. And he wanted to see your kirtan." And then Shiva said, "He just lives by milk alone." And then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu told Srivas Pandit that, "Do you think that just by drinking milk alone, just by this austerity alone, that he could achieve love for Krishna?" Which is a good point, because there's so many things that people may try to do, but to achieve love for Krishna is, we have to engage in the authorized principles of Bhakti, So anyways, but he got to see it for some time. And then eventually the devotees, they took the kirtan out to the streets in Navadvip. And then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu eventually took sannyas. He traveled all South India for 6 years, spreading the holy name. And then eventually went to Jagannath Puri. And then, so he was the main one. Okay, Dimitri?
Yeah, thank you for the class. I was here in a class yesterday from devotees from Kazakhstan, and they were saying sharing a little secret on how to distribute prasadam. Whenever they go to Vrindavan, they would bring some soil, and they would put it in like sweets and pancakes they make, and distribute it to people to give them the mercy.
Wow. Okay, interesting.
Yeah. And I had a question too. You were saying about pleasing spiritual master, and spiritual master can give you instructions, and sometimes we don't have such a opportunity to physically be present with the spiritual master.
Yeah.
But being engaged in the service to please him, how can we know without physical contact that we are pleasing him, and without so much association?
How do you know that you're pleasing him if you're not having much, you could say, contact with him in terms of communication or seeing him like in person? Well, one way is that we're feeling happy in Krishna consciousness. We're feeling more inspired. Means when I talk about, there's like false inspiration and there's real inspiration, so we're feeling real inspiration. But I mean, another way to know is that, we have to be honest with ourselves. If we are trying our best, and for everyone that may mean something. That may mean that one person's best is not another person's best. So everyone has different abilities to try their best, right? So if we're trying our best and we are following the instructions, honestly following the instructions of the spiritual master, then we could take it that he's pleased because we're trying our best. What else could we do? And we're also following. It's not that when we say try our best, it means we don't follow. It means we're following, but we're also trying our best to perfectly follow, right? So that should be indication that the spiritual master is pleased. It's not, you could say, difficult, ultimately, to please the spiritual master. He's very merciful. So he just wants to see our endeavor. Prabhupada was very pleased with his disciples just for trying. And Prabhupada would glorify them regularly. Even though they're very imperfect, actually. Sorry for saying that, but even though they're very imperfect. I mean, I happened to fall upon one devotee, he joined, and then he became a devotee, and he was married, and eventually took sannyas, and then eventually he gave up his sannyas. And I don't know really what he's doing now, but based on his statements, it seemed like he kind of went askew in terms of philosophical understandings and practice, really. But anyways, I read a little bit of his biography, no, autobiography. And I was surprised. I mean, I didn't read much because I didn't want to read his whole autobiography, but I was surprised. I mean, he was being honest in terms of his faults and his understandings. And Prabhupada had this person like opening temples and, and the person was clearly having a hard time and imperfect in many ways. And then Prabhupada eventually gave this person sannyas. And, from his understanding, he's writing based on what he was experiencing at that time. He was actually very immature, But Prabhupada still engaged him. So it was amazing, actually. And Prabhupada, he was pleased with his endeavor. He was pleased with his trying, actually. So that's the nature of the spiritual master. Very merciful. It gives us so many chances, actually unlimited chances. I'll tell you two things. One was there was this man in Juhu, Mumbai. He was a disciple of Prabhupada. And then Prabhupada, this man, he started making, because they're making life members. You go to people and you say, you give this much amount of money, we'll give you a full set of books. You could stay in any temple in the world 3 days at a time. It's life membership. So devotees were doing that, making life members. And then this devotee, disciple of Prabhupada, he started going to these life members and just collecting money for himself. And then the devotee said, Prabhupada, this is too much. We should inform these life members that this person's not good. And Prabhupada said, no, that's okay. We'll just give him some time. He didn't immediately call the life members and tell them how horrible this person was and he's collecting, right? So then some time passed, and then this man, this disciple of his started living on the beach. Kind of homeless, living on the beach. And he was associated with some yogi, right? Some bogus yogi. And this disciple was trying to learn the art of passing a coin in one ear and having it come out the other ear. He was trying to learn that. So then one devotee said, Prabhupada, this is too much. Isn't there a limit? In other words, can't we reject him? And then Prabhupada said, oh, you don't understand. He said, you don't understand the mercy of Lord Nityananda. He said, the mercy of Lord Nityananda is unlimited. And then this devotee who was remembering this said that it was very, 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 very rare that Prabhupada rejected anybody. So in other words, the spiritual master is very merciful. like Tamal Krishna Goswami, one devotee, she was cooking for him, and Maharaj was like a very, like very precise. He wanted like everything very precisely cooked, and like if it was too hot in temperature, it was bad. If it was too cold, everything had to be, you know. So, anyways, and it's good training actually. But so this devotee was very nervous, and she was new cook. She was a new cook. So the first day, she was serving him lunch, and you know, he was taking cilantro chutney. You know, cilantro chutney, you have those rubber bands. So he was taking cilantro chutney, and then he found a piece of rubber band in there. And then he said, "Just see, she's trying to kill her spiritual master." And she was just like, you know, devastated. And then the next day, you know, he was taking his meal, and then he goes like this, and there's a coconut chutney, and you know, the hard shell. So he held up the shell to her, and he said, "Just see, she's trying to kill her spiritual master." And then the next day, there was rubber band, coconut shell, and what else could there have been? Bug? Maybe a stone in the doll or something. Just see, she's trying to kill her. So then at one point she said, "Oh, Gurudev, why don't you just give up on me? Like, I mean, why didn't you just give up on me?" And then he said, "Give up on you?" He said, "I don't give up on anybody." So it was, and then she actually became a very good cook. And she's still there in Houston. She's actually one of the best cooks there in Houston. Her name's Padaduli. So, yeah, the spiritual master doesn't give up. So in other words, it's not very difficult. We just have to try. And then if we fail, we have to try again. And if we fail, we got to try again and just keep on trying until we become more and more perfect, and then until we don't fail. But we have to keep on trying. So
the main indication is that the quality of your service and just the happiness increases. That's how you can tell that you.
Yeah, you're feeling the benefits of Krishna consciousness. And also you could check with those who are close to your spiritual master, means the senior devotees, because they should also be seen as a spiritual master's representatives. So you go to, if you're not sure, would this please my spiritual master? If you're not sure, you go to the senior devotees and say, "Am I pleasing him?" And they say, "No, Dmitri, bad idea. Renounce it immediately." And you say, "Okay." And they say, "Do this." And you say, "Okay, I'll do this. Good idea." All right, and you do it. Then there's also checking with the other devotees. We shouldn't just see the spiritual master as alone, but the spiritual master also has representatives who could also help. So, all right, any last soul? Do you have one pending? Okay, then soul.
Zoom. You said remembering Radharani. I just had a quick question. Is there any descriptions describing like her appearance?
You're getting too...
Well,
I'm just joking. Hey, buddy, don't push it, all right? No, I'm just joking. Any descriptions of...
Like, you know, they have descriptions of Krishna and then a description of Lord Nityananda. But
in terms of her appearance?
Yeah,
of course, yeah. You know, when we say conscious of Srimati Radharani, it doesn't... I mean, of course, we have Radha Giridhari here. Part of being conscious of Srimati Radharani is when we approach Radha Giridhari is that, okay, we're praying to Krishna, but we're also praying to Srimati Radharani. So you could offer some prayers to Radharani. And it's a touchy subject because, of course, you know, Radharani and Srimati Radharani and Krishna have a conjugal relationship, right? The divine couple. But there are prayers that are suitable for us to say to Srimati Radharani. Or just even simple, or even you could say simple prayers, like Srila Prabhupada said when he approaches the deities, he says, I'm praying to Srimati Radharani that I do not fall down. That, in other words, that I do not become swept away by illusion. So that's there. But we do have to be careful because much of the descriptions of the Goswami's literatures, like most of the descriptions of Srimati Radharani and Krishna in the pastimes, or descriptions of Srimati Radharani, they are conjugal by nature. Like Rasa Leela, for example, it's Krishna dancing with the gopis. And of course it says that if it's properly heard by a proper authority, it will actually remove lust or selfishness or personal selfish desires from our heart. But if it's not heard from a proper authority, then it actually could act opposite. So that's why Prabhupada said, if you're reading about Rasa Leela and you're just becoming, you're just thinking in mundane terms, better don't read Rasa Leela. Better read Krishna killing Dhanakasura or something, right? But most of the descriptions, there are descriptions in Bhagavatam. Actually, the descriptions they say that Shukadeva Goswami, he didn't say Srimati Radharani's name directly in the Srimad Bhagavatam. And some people are like, why? Because but he said it indirectly. He said Aradhanam, which means Aradha means Radha, Rani. Radha, specifically that word, means the best worshipper. But it says that he didn't mention her name directly, Srimati Radharani, because he said he would have went in so much ecstasy that he wouldn't be able to continue speaking the Bhagavatam. So therefore he said indirectly. Now in terms of more direct statements of or direct mention of Radharani, Srimati Radharani, this is Nectar Devotion. Nectar Devotion is a great book. Srila Prabhupada gave it to us. There's many descriptions of Krishna, Srimati Radharani, and so many pastimes there. So I would definitely focus on that book, Nectar Devotion, the complete science of Bhakti Yoga. So there, you could focus on that. But in terms of other descriptions, there's other books also, like Ujjvala Nilamani, Gopal Champu, Ananda Vrindavan Champu, so many other books. But these books have to be studied very carefully, and specifically they should be studied with the blessings and permission of one's Shiksha Gurus, Diksha Gurus, and so on. I know in Kartik, my spiritual master, I was there with him one time in Kartik, and every day they would chant, I'm forgetting how many names of Srimati Radharani, but they would chant this whole series. I think it's 8 verses, but they're all names of Srimati Radharani. Very beautiful. And the reason being is because this Kartik, it's in October, November, where we worship baby Krishna Damodar. It's actually called Urja Vrata, which it's actually called Urja, not Vrata. Anyways, it's the month of Srimati Radharani, actually. And actually this name, Ujeshwari, it's a name of Srimati Radharani. And it's referring to the goddess of the month of Urja, which is Kartik. So it's in that description of the name. So sometimes devotees will chant names of Srimati Radharani, pray to Srimati Radharani, read the Nectar Devotion. Yeah, things like that. So, yeah. Yeah, we have to be a little careful. So, but Krishna book is there also, and yeah. Okay, we have one pending question on Zoom, I think, right?
Yes, Balaram Prabhu, Dandavat Pranams. May I?
Yes.
Yes, my question is, if the mood of Lord Chaitanya is to ignore the offenses, but only accept the service offered to him, my question is, should the followers of Lord Chaitanya do the same, like only accepting the service offered to them and ignore the offenses? And if your answer to my question is yes, the follow-up question is, how much should we tolerate?
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, it says that the devotees, it says like in the fourth canto, previous canto, before this canto, says that the dust of the devotees' feet, by serving that dust, it actually brings great advancement. But he says by offending the same dust, it actually brings about one's ruination. So it says by offending devotees, the lifespan is decreased, the all the good stuff is decreased. So someone may say, as devotees, yeah, we shouldn't be easily offended. It's not that somebody offends us and we should immediately be offended. We should try to be tolerant, more tolerant than a tree, actually. That's the standard. But even if we are tolerant, it says that Krishna, he takes offense. That's the challenging thing, because you could say, hey, we're all supposed to be tolerant, so I could just offend you, like, I could offend you constantly. And because you're tolerant as a tree, great, you're a merciful devotee, and I'm conditioned, so I'm just going to offend you. And he may not wish me any ill at all, like Saul. He may not wish me any bad feelings at all, right? He's not holding a grudge. He's not praying for my ruination, right? He's merciful. He's tolerant. But Krishna sees and he says, "Okay, Balaram, you rascal, you're gonna get some reactions." Why? For the purpose of education. Because if you're just allowed to do anything and everything and not get any reactions, how will we ever learn? So we should be tolerant, but we should also, personally we should be tolerant, but we should also note that, again, Krishna takes offense. So therefore we have to be careful.
Yes, Prabhu. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Very helpful, as usual, answer to my question.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
It's also Jamuna Jivan's birthday, right? Happy birthday to you. I'm not going to do what some people do on their birthdays. They go up to the person and they hit them in the arm however many times. I remember there was one brahmachari here, and it was my birthday. I forgot what year. I don't know, it was 26 or 27 or something. This brahmachari was a little passionate, and this was years ago. But anyways, he came up to me and he said, "Oh, it's your birthday." And he grabbed my arm and he started like 26 times or whatever. And I thought he was joking, like he was gonna like stop after like a few, but he kept on going. He completed it. That was the only time I've had somebody do that since I joined the temple. But anyways. So we won't do that. And then also it'd be like 1 person, 2 person, 3 person, 4. It'd be a lot. A sore arm. Yeah. So, all right. Grantrad Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Badri Narayan Swami did not give class today because he is the GBC for Hawaii, and he is in Hawaii with Govardhan Das, and they're taking care of management, preaching stuff over there, but they should be back soon. So, all right, Hare Krishna.